Good morning, everyone. I am here to talk to you about our readings this week, week 6 on embodiment and epistemology again. So the readings this week were really all focused on the feminist approach to religion and religious studies. And I'd like to start with Radford, who articulates what a feminist theology actually is. So for her, there are two parts to this. The first is that a feminist theology offers a critical reflection on the androcentric bias of theology itself. And secondly, it attempts to reconstruct theology to offer a feminist perspective on theology. And in order to do this, Radford is interesting in the sense that she offers, it's basically a multidisciplinary process. And she offers insights from history, anthropology, sociology, psychology, and philosophy as ways of using the methods of those disciplines as part of feminist theology. Wadud offers us a hermeneutic process for her rereading of the Quran, and she distinguishes between the text itself and interpretation of the text. So in the context of the Quran, it is a universal and egalitarian text with 1500 years of interpretations that have been offered by men in very patriarchal societies. And so Wadud goes back to the text itself, and she looks at the context of the text. So here that would be 7th century Arabia for the Quran. She looks at the grammatical composition of the text. So in other words, what very specifically is the language that was used? What is the meaning that the language was trying to convey at that time? And what is a contemporary adequate translation that creates meaning for that text now? And then she looks at the worldview of the text and says any interpretation that is not aligned with the bigger worldview of the original text should not stand, basically. So here, for example, any interpretation of the Quran that suggests that women are subordinate is not an accurate interpretation because the Quran is an egalitarian text. So Fiorenza then takes this one step further and says beyond the hermeneutic process is a metic process. And this is, she's using a kind of metaphor of Metis, who was a nymph, I think, in ancient Greece. She was a lover of Zeus. She became pregnant with Athena, and Zeus became afraid of her. So he turned her into a fly and swallowed her, and Athena was born out of his head. And so Fiorenza has called a process the metic process. She uses that to refer to the process of understanding how women have been erased and eradicated from text, from history, from the study of theology. And for her, the metic process is this process of uncovering what is unseen about women. So I think her question is, what are we not seeing? And that is the starting point. Shaw also is working with the same question, what are we not seeing? So she's a feminist historiographer of Tibetan Buddhism. And she sets out to basically rediscover the historical agency of women in this spiritual tradition. And so she's very keen to understand how women acted, not how women were acted upon. How did women view, not how were women viewed? And she seeks to not only restore accounts of eminent women, so queens and nuns, but also to redefine what is historically important to include women. So in other words, if women's lives take place inside the family, then the family is part of history. And she says we need to look way beyond the usual available information to find out about women's lives. So we need to look at arts, crafts, storytelling, folklore, oral tradition. And she makes an interesting point that references to women are not little bits and pieces in an androcentric design of the world. They are, if you like, the highlights and the clues that give us a thread to follow to rediscover a kind of the feminist design of the world, the feminist worldview, women's worldview. Kwok Pulian offers insight into post-colonial feminist theory, and what I took from her writing was the idea that both the colonized and the colonizer need to engage in the post-colonial feminist process. It's multi-paradigmatic, and that all those who take part in it are transformed by the process. Shippert brings queer theory to the study of religion, and this challenge to heteronormativity that queer theory offers brings a kind of disruption to the understanding, to conventional understandings, not only of gender but also of body identity in religious studies. And so it's perhaps kind of shifting the boundaries of religious studies in the way that it thinks about men and women. And finally, Plasko offers some reflections on the intersectionality of the work that we are doing. And she's a Jewish scholar, and she recognises and acknowledges that she's used the work of Christian scholars and the work of marginalised women. And the question that she asks is, what does it mean to arrive at feminist consciousness through the work of another group of women, and to use their work to do critical work on my own group? And I think her questions are very relevant to us, because as far as I'm aware, all of us in the class are seeking to do work that goes beyond our own culture and our own experience. And she says, how do I respect the boundaries and the voices of the women that I work with, and at the same time allowing them to enter and affect my work? And on that note, I will close my peer lecture. I hope you've enjoyed that and found it helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the discussions. Okay, bye.